The world often presents a glittering image of leadership as a destination, a final point of arrival marked by a mahogany desk, a prestigious title etched in brass, and the quiet hum of a corner office overlooking a bustling metropolis. Many spend their entire lives in a state of suspended animation, waiting for the moment when a formal authority figure will hand them a scepter and grant them the permission to lead. They believe that leadership is a gift bestowed by an organization, a reward for years of patient waiting, or a suit of armor that one puts on only when the battle is officially declared. There is a pervasive silence in the hearts of those who wait, a quiet assumption that until the title arrives, their actions do not truly count. They move through their days as observers, watching problems unfold and opportunities slip by, convinced that it is someone else's responsibility to step forward. This waiting is a subtle trap, a velvet-lined cage that keeps potential locked away in a drawer of some day. In the grand halls of commerce across the American continent and the historical institutions of Europe, the myth of the great title persists. It suggests that the person with the most impressive name on their business card is the one who possesses the wisdom and the right to direct others. Yet, if one looks closely at the shadows behind the scenes, a different story emerges. The true essence of influence does not begin with a ceremony or a contract. It begins in the quiet, unrecorded moments of a Tuesday afternoon when things go wrong and no one is looking. The atmosphere of a workplace is often thick with the expectation that leadership is a top-down phenomenon, a light that only shines from the highest peak. But the reality is far more grounded, far more visceral. It is a slow, burning fire that starts in the trenches, long before the world recognizes its heat. Imagine a hallway where every door is closed, and every person behind those doors is waiting for a signal that never comes. They possess the intelligence, the drive, and the vision, but they lack the label. They are like musicians waiting for a conductor who has long since left the room, holding their instruments in a silence that grows heavier with every passing year. This delay is not merely a waste of time. It is a fundamental misunderstanding of the human spirit's capacity to influence. The narrative of waiting for a prestigious name creates a disconnect between action and identity. It fosters a culture of spectators rather than participants, where the weight of responsibility is always shifted to an invisible they who hold the power. When the focus is placed entirely on the external trappings of success, the company car, the exclusive club membership, the luxury of a private space, the internal growth required to sustain such a position is often neglected. Leadership is not a static state of being. It is a muscle that must be flexed, a craft that must be honed through trial and error. To wait for the title before beginning the practice is to arrive at the starting line of a marathon without ever having taken a single step in training. The tragedy of the expected leader is that when they finally receive the title they so desperately craved, they often find themselves hollow, possessing the authority but lacking the intuitive rhythm of a true guide. They have the map, but they have never walked the terrain. There is an invisible threshold that separates the many who wait from the few who act. It is the realization that every day lived is a preparation for the leadership role one currently occupies, even if that role has no name. The air in a room changes when someone decides that the title is irrelevant to the mission. It is a shift from "what can I get" to "what can I do?" This transition is the hook that catches the soul of a true leader, pulling them out of the sea of mediocrity and onto the solid ground of initiative. The curiosity lies in wondering what would happen if the labels were stripped away, who would still be standing, and who would still be followed. The journey into leadership does not start at the peak. It begins in the valley, in the very moments where the title is nowhere to be found.
In the tapestry of daily life, leadership reveals itself in the most unexpected and humble threads. It is not confined to the sterile environments of high-rise boardrooms. It breathes in the chaotic air of a household, the spirited debates of a university society, and the local community centers in Latin America or the home region. Leadership is an energy that fills a vacuum. When a problem arises, perhaps a long-standing tension within a group that everyone has been tiptoeing around, the one who gently but firmly addresses it is exercising a power that no HR department could ever grant. This informal authority is the bedrock of all true influence. It is the act of stepping into the breach when the official leader is absent, or when the structure itself proves insufficient for the moment. Consider the setting of a typical workplace when the formal supervisor is away on a well-earned vacation. The atmosphere often shifts toward a certain laxity, or perhaps a mounting anxiety as questions go unanswered. It is in this precise environment that the silent leader emerges. They are the ones who, without being asked and without seeking credit, begin to organize the clients, align the team's goals, and ensure that the momentum is not lost. They do not do this by barking orders or demanding submission. They do it through the sheer force of their competence and their willingness to carry the weight. They recognize that the work does not stop because a nameplate is missing from a desk. This is leadership in its purest, most organic form, a service rendered to the collective good without the promise of immediate reward. These opportunities for informal leadership are scattered like seeds throughout a person's career and personal life. In the home region, it might be the individual who takes charge of a complex family gathering, navigating the logistics and the personalities with a grace that ensures everyone feels included and cared for. In a university setting, it is the student who organizes a sports league or a study group when no one else is willing to take the first step. These acts are often seen as just helping out, but they are actually the laboratory of greatness. Each time an individual chooses to lead without a title, they are gathering data on how people react, how to resolve conflict, and how to inspire action. They are building a portfolio of experiences that will eventually become the foundation of their formal career. There is a profound tension between the desire to lead and the fear of overstepping. The internal struggle often sounds like a whisper of doubt. Who am I to take charge? Or it's not my responsibility. This struggle is the first true test of a leader. It is the conflict between the comfort of staying in one's lane and the calling to improve the situation for everyone. When a work group is formed and no leader is designated, a palpable tension usually fills the room. People look at their shoes, waiting for someone else to break the ice. The one who eventually speaks up, who suggests a direction or asks a clarifying question, has just crossed the Rubicon. They have accepted the burden of the first move. This informal leadership can be found even in the smallest of gestures. It might be the person who notices a colleague is drowning in financial paperwork and offers a structured way to handle the backlog. It might be the individual who senses the exhaustion of a team after a grueling project and organizes a moment of celebration to heal the collective spirit. These are not management tasks in the traditional sense. They are human interventions. They demonstrate an awareness that goes beyond the self. To lead without authority is to lead through empathy and expertise. It is a sign of a maturity that understands that the health of the group is inextricably linked to the success of the individual. As these moments accumulate, a transformation begins to occur. The person who leads informally starts to be viewed differently by their peers and their superiors. They are no longer just another employee or another member of the group. They become a point of reference. They are the person people turn to when things get difficult, the one whose opinion is sought before a decision is made. This transition happens quietly, without fanfare, yet it is more powerful than any official promotion. It creates a reality where the title, when it eventually arrives, is simply a formality, a public recognition of a fact that has already been established through months or years of consistent titleless action. The path toward formal management is paved with these small, courageous decisions to lead in the now.
Beneath the surface of every potential leader lies a deep-seated reluctance, a shadow that whispers of risk and exposure. This internal resistance is not a sign of weakness. It is a natural human response to the vulnerability of standing out from the crowd. To lead informally is to put oneself on a stage without the protection of a script or the authority of a uniform. It is to risk being wrong, being mocked, or being perceived as too ambitious. In the corridors of many organizations, there is a subtle pressure to conform, to keep one's head down and wait for instructions. Stepping out of this formation requires a psychological fortitude that many find daunting. The mind becomes an architect of excuses, building elaborate structures of why not to avoid the discomfort of why. One of the most common fears is the dread of being ridiculed or seen as an imposter. There is a concern that colleagues will whisper behind one's back, accusing them of trying to be the boss without having the right to do so. This fear of social friction is a powerful deterrent. It taps into an ancient instinct to remain part of the herd for safety.
The thought of a boss or a more senior colleague taking offense at one's initiative is another heavy weight. There is a worry that taking charge might be interpreted as a challenge to existing hierarchies, a breach of etiquette that could lead to professional repercussions. These anxieties create a paralyzing caution, where the potential leader chooses the safety of the shadows over the risk of the light. Furthermore, there is the simple, gnawing fear of failure. If one assumes leadership informally and the project fails, or the meeting is a disaster, there is no title to hide behind. The failure belongs entirely to the individual who stepped forward. The worry that one is not truly capable, that the skills are not there, can lead to a state of chronic hesitation. People often look at their peers and worry about inciting jealousy or envy. They fear that by showing their strength, they will lose their friendships. This emotional landscape is a minefield that every leader must navigate. It is the invisible battle that happens before a single word is spoken or a single plan is made. To overcome this reluctance, a person must engage in a process of objective self-reflection. They must learn to distinguish between a valid reason for caution and a mere excuse born of discomfort. It is a slow peeling back of the layers of ego and fear. The question shifts from "what will they think of me" to "what does the situation require?" This change in perspective is a hallmark of emotional intelligence. It allows the individual to see the needs of the team as more important than their own temporary discomfort. They begin to realize that the risks they fear are often illusions, and that the greatest risk of all is the stagnation that comes from never trying. In this phase of deep exploration, the character of the leader is forged. It is in the moments where one feels nervous, with palms sweating and heart racing, yet chooses to speak up anyway, that true growth occurs. This is not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. The narrative of the titleless leader is one of repeated small victories over these internal shadows. Each time they organize a task or mediate a conflict, despite their nerves, they are rewiring their brain for success. They are learning that the world does not end when they take a stand. In fact, the world often opens up to meet them. They discover that most people are actually relieved when someone takes the lead, as it frees them from the burden of uncertainty. This progression toward leadership is not a linear climb, but a deepening of one's roots. It involves developing a skin thick enough to handle criticism and a heart open enough to care for the results. The emotional subtext of this journey is one of increasing self-reliance. As the individual practices informal leadership, they stop looking outward for validation and start finding it within their own sense of integrity and purpose. They become less concerned with the prestigious name and more focused on the impact of their presence. This internal shift is the most critical revelation in the life of a leader. It marks the moment when they stop being a servant of the title and start being a master of the moment, ready for whatever challenges the future may hold.
The turning point in the evolution of a leader often occurs when they stop seeing their daily environment as a mere routine and begin to view it as a continuous assessment. Imagine a high-stakes evaluation center, perhaps in a grand facility in Europe or a modern complex in the American continent, where every move is observed by unseen judges. In such a setting, participants are given tasks where no one is officially in charge. The observers are not looking for the loudest voice or the person who dominates the room. They are looking for the one who naturally synthesizes information, listens to others, and moves the group toward a solution. This assessment mindset is the secret weapon of those who rise quickly. They understand that even in the absence of a formal test, the world is always watching. A critical revelation comes when one realizes that every meeting, every project, and every interaction is an audition for the future. The most impressive individuals are those who grasp the gravity of the present moment. They do not wait for a special occasion to demonstrate their potential. They treat every mundane task as if their entire career depended on it. This is the climax of the leadership journey, the moment the switch is flipped from passive participant to active driver. It is the decision to act as if one already holds the position they desire. This isn't about arrogance or overstepping boundaries. It is about taking full ownership of one's contribution to the collective goal. Consider a scene in a workspace where a project has hit a dead end. The air is thick with frustration, and the designated manager is overwhelmed or absent. The atmosphere is one of impending collapse. In this critical sequence, the informal leader does not wait for a memo or a mandate. They step to the whiteboard, they ask the hard questions, and they begin to map out a path forward. The intensity of this moment is palpable. The room goes quiet as the group recognizes a shift in the energy. This is the turning point where the trajectory of a career can change in an instant.
By taking the initiative, the individual is not just solving a problem, they are redefining their identity in the eyes of everyone present. This act of courage creates a ripple effect. It forces others to elevate their own performance and provides a sense of security that was previously missing. The climax is not found in a grand speech, but in the quiet resolution to be the one who cares the most. It is the moment when the individual realizes that leadership is not a noun, something you have, but a verb, something you do. The realization is gripping. The power they were waiting for was already within them, waiting to be activated by a choice. This clarity washes away the hesitation of the past. The fears of being seen as too much or out of place evaporate in the face of the urgent need for action. In the aftermath of such a revelation, the world looks different. The individual no longer sees a hierarchy of titles, but a landscape of opportunities. They recognize that authority is often a trailing indicator. It follows the person who has already proven they can handle it. This shift in understanding is a profound transformation. It moves the focus from the external world of promotions and perks to the internal world of capability and service. The person who understands this becomes nearly unstoppable, as they are no longer dependent on the permission of others to make a difference. They have seized the golden opportunity that so many others let pass by. This transition into clarity marks the end of the struggle with reluctance. The person has seen what is possible when they step forward, and they can never truly go back to being a passive observer. They have tasted the reality of influence and found that it is far more satisfying than the safety of anonymity. The trajectory is now set toward formal recognition, not because they are chasing it, but because they have become the kind of person that organizations cannot afford to keep in a secondary role. The climax of this narrative is the birth of a leader who is ready to meet the world on their own terms, title or no title.
Following the decision to lead without a title, a new reality begins to settle in. It is a period of quiet but profound transformation, where the initial adrenaline of taking charge is replaced by the steady rhythm of consistent practice. The aftermath of these informal leadership moments is rarely a sudden promotion or a parade in one's honor. Instead, it is a subtle shift in the social and professional fabric. People start to lean on the individual. They are the ones who receive the quick questions that are actually deep requests for guidance. The consequences of their initiative manifest as an increased workload, yes, but also as an increased level of trust. This trust is the most valuable currency in any organization, and it is earned only through the repeated demonstration of character and competence. The internal transformation is even more significant. As the person continues to step into leadership gaps, their self-perception evolves. The imposter who feared ridicule is replaced by a professional who knows their value. They begin to see that leadership is a craft that improves with every iteration. Like an athlete training for a major competition, they have used the smaller moments to build the endurance and skill necessary for the larger ones. The lessons learned while organizing a small team event or managing a household crisis in the home region become the very tools they will use to navigate global challenges. They find that the principles of human connection and organization are universal, regardless of the scale. There is also a realization about the nature of influence. The individual discovers that they don't need a loud voice or a forceful personality to lead. In fact, some of their most effective moments come from listening more than talking, and from empowering others rather than taking all the credit. They see the results of their actions, the project that stayed on track, the team morale that was saved, the family vacation that went smoothly, and they realize that these outcomes are their true legacy. The aftermath of leadership is the quiet satisfaction of knowing that things are better because they chose to act. This internal settling brings a sense of peace that no formal title could ever provide. In the broader context of their career, these informal leaders are being noticed in ways they might not even realize. High-level observers in major hubs like London, New York, or Madrid are always looking for the natural. They are scanning for the person who steps up when the path is unclear. The individual who has been practicing informal leadership becomes the obvious choice when a formal opening occurs. Their transition into a manager or supervisor role feels natural and inevitable to everyone involved. It is not a shock, but a confirmation of what has been true for a long time. They have already done the work. The title is simply catching up to the reality of their influence. This phase also involves a certain amount of shedding. The individual sheds the need for constant external validation. They shed the habit of waiting for instructions. They shed the fear of what others might think. In their place, a robust sense of personal agency grows. They understand that their growth is their own responsibility. The central lesson that emerges is that the environment doesn't make the leader makes the environment. Whether they are in a startup or a multinational corporation, they carry their leadership within them as a portable asset. This realization is the ultimate liberation from the hierarchy. As the narrative moves towards its conclusion, the individual stands at a new vantage point. They have navigated the tension of informal leadership and come out stronger on the other side. They are no longer waiting for the future. They are creating it. The consequences of their courage have shaped not only their career but their very soul. They have learned that the world is looking for people who are willing to take the lead, and by being that person, they have secured their place in the ranks of those who truly make a difference. The quiet aftermath of their journey is the foundation for a lifetime of impact. In the final reflection of this journey, one must consider the true weight of a name. A title on a door or a business card is a static thing, a collection of letters that describes a position but cannot define a person. True leadership is a living, breathing process of constant evolution. It is a commitment to excellence that exists independently of any external reward. When the layers of professional vanity are stripped away, what remains is the essence of a person who decided that the world was worth improving, and that they were the one to do it. This philosophical shift is the ultimate takeaway. Leadership is not a destination you reach, but a way you walk through the world. Those who have mastered the art of leading without a title understand that the most important followers they will ever have are themselves. Self-leadership is the precursor to all other forms of influence. If a person cannot lead their own thoughts, their own fears, and their own actions in the quiet moments of the day, they will never be able to lead 1,000 people in the heat of a crisis. The practice of taking initiative in small things is the discipline that prepares the spirit for great things. It is the steady accumulation of small, faithful acts that builds the integrity required to stand under the heavy pressure of a formal role. The meaning of leadership is found in the consistency of one's character, not the height of one's rank. The world is currently in a state of desperate longing for this kind of authentic, titleless leadership. In every sector, from the local neighborhoods of the home region to the vast governmental structures across the American continent, there are vacuums waiting to be filled. There is a need for individuals who are more interested in results than in credit, more focused on service than status. The person who understands this becomes a beacon of hope in a culture that is often obsessed with the superficial. They demonstrate that power is something to be shared and used for the collective good, rather than something to be hoarded and protected. This is the higher calling of the leader, to be a catalyst for the growth and success of others. As this story draws to a close, it leaves us with a lingering question. What are we waiting for? If the golden opportunity is present in every moment, then there is no excuse for delay. The prestigious name, the luxury office, and the company car are all shadows. Useful perhaps, but ultimately empty without the substance of practiced skill. The real work of leadership is happening now, in the way a person speaks to a struggling peer, the way they organize a chaotic task, and the way they choose to stay focused when everyone else is distracted. These are the moments that define a life. These are the moments that create a leader. To conclude is to realize that the journey never truly ends. Even the most successful CEOs and global figures must continue to lead with the same humility and initiative they had when they had no title at all. The moment a leader begins to rely solely on their formal authority is the moment they begin to lose their true influence. The most inspiring leaders are those who remain informal at heart, always ready to roll up their sleeves, always looking for a problem to solve, and always willing to step into the breach. They have learned that the scepter of leadership is heavy, and it is best carried by hands that have been strengthened by years of unheralded labor. Let the final image be one of clarity and quiet resolve. Imagine a person stepping into their workplace tomorrow morning. They have no new title, no raise, and no grand announcement of their power. Yet they walk with a different step. They see the gaps that need filling, the people who need encouraging, and the projects that need a steady hand. They do not wait for a signal. They do not look for a nameplate. They simply begin to lead. And in that simple act of beginning, they have already achieved the success that others will spend their whole lives waiting for. The true title is written in the hearts of those they serve, and it is the only one that truly lasts.